Hello Year 5 and welcome to Week 3 Friday's tutorial for the Blue and Green group. Today we are going to be exploring what makes writing effective. So, if we were filling in a toolkit for this piece of writing, we would be looking at the following. Our purpose is to inform, because we are going to be presenting a balanced argument. Was the moon landing real or faked? Now, a balanced argument means that we are going to give both sides of the story and allow our reader at the end to make up their own mind. So we cannot, as I've said, even if we think it was real, just include real evidence. If we think it was fake, we can't just include fake evidence. We have to give this element of balance. And this is going as part of a display. Hopefully we will send them on to the public visiting the InTech. So the InTech is actually now called the Winchester Science Centre. And as you can see, the form is a balanced argument. So here is our Waggle, which I'm going to read to you now. Was the first man on the moon landing real or fake? For over 50 years now, many people across the world can still vividly recall watching live on their television sets a moment which would go down as one of the most important events in history. On the 20th of July, the world was gripped as Commander Neil Armstrong and Lunar Module pilot Buzz Aldrin, both American, landed the Apollo Lunar Module Eagle on the moon. The Apollo 11 mission marked what was possibly mankind's greatest ever achievement, landing men on the moon for the first time. But over 50 years since that momentous feat, questions are arising as a growing number of conspiracy theories claim the landing was faked. Many still believe that the evidence categorically shows Armstrong was the first man on the moon, while opponents feel these images are flawed, suggesting the moon landing was fake. It can be argued that the pictures taken of Armstrong and his teams lack validity. In the images taken of the astronauts on the moon, stars are not visible. Although there is no air on the moon, other images clearly show a USA flag waving in the wind. As well as this, in photos of the moon's surface, one of the rocks has what appears to be a letter C written on it. Critics suggest this could have been a film prop, hypothesising that the landing was filmed in a studio. Having said this, in 2007, Japan sent a satellite to the moon to take pictures of the surface. They photographed the area where one of the American missions had landed, and they saw marks on the surface where the lunar module, the vehicle the astronauts used to travel around in 1969, had been. Once again, in 2009, an American satellite took pictures of one of the areas that was visited by the manned space missions and tracks left by the lunar buggy, the surface also clearly visible. In addition to this, the Soviet Union, now known as Russia, had equipment that was able to track the American spacecraft to the moon. If there was no proof of the mission being successful, Russia would be able to publicly humiliate America, but they have made no such claims. However, those people invested in the conspiracy theories suggest in 1960s the United States of America and the Soviet Union were involved in a space race. Both countries were known to be desperate to beat the other into being the first person to put man on the moon. At the start of the 1960s, the United States of America were losing the race. Therefore, many believed the USA couldn't have been successful. Furthermore, 400,000 people worked at NASA for nearly 10 years to develop the technology for the first manned mission to the moon. If the moon landings were faked, a lot of people would have been able to keep an immense secret. On the other hand, Bill Casing, who worked at the company where the engines for the moon rocket were being made, claimed that the rockets did not work properly. It should, however, be noted that Casing's role at NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, was not a scientist or an engineer. Opinions are divided on this subject, as many people want to believe that these iconic images of Armstrong and his team first viewed in 1969 were legitimate. The views of adversaries are torn between the fact that a variety of evidence suggests it could very easily have been faked or very much real. Which stance do you take? Was it real or was it fake? So as you can see, the format for our writing is very much going to be an introductory paragraph telling our reader what happened, that there were these lunar landings, and introducing the arguments that it's real. Some people think it's real, some people think it's fake. And then in each of our 3 paragraphs here, we have started to use the evidence to back up each of the arguments. So here we've got it was faked because, but then we have it was real on the other hand. Here we've got it was fake, and then, real, and then moving into fake. And then finally we've got it was real, and then into fake. And then in our concluding paragraph we ask our reader to make their minds up. So in order to do that, we need to make some really important decisions today as to what we are going to use in our writing. Now, we have used this format before, and it's one that you should be used to. So, the purpose of our writing. We've already been told we are informing our audience. Informing our audience about the lunar landings and informing our audience about the fact that it might have been faked. The first thing we need to do is reread, perhaps, and decide, well, what was the effect? Reading that Waggle, how did it make me feel? Now you have the advantage of this being a video clip. You could replay me reading the Waggle to you 4, 5, 6, 7 times throughout this session, as many times as you need. Or you could read it because you've also been given a hard copy. So, effect. I will start you off. It makes me feel curious. I wonder how it's happened. I want to know why people would fake it. Why do people not believe it's real? One of the first feelings I feel is curiosity. I feel curious. So what I would like you to do now is pause the video and have a go at finding 2, 3, 4 more feelings, emotions that this piece of writing makes you feel. Once you've done that, you can press play again, and we will move on to the vocabulary section. So, vocabulary section. Now we can go through and pick words that we think are really, really important to be able to convey our meaning. Now you could start off by doing this just by highlighting. So I'm going to start at the top and go down. So I'm thinking words that make me feel curious, or whatever other effects you came up with, but also you might want to include some of the technical vocabulary. So you might even want to do it in 2 different colours. So let's start off. Television, not that important. Important events in history. I quite like that phrase, important events in history. But then I might be using things like, so Apollo Lunar Module Eagle, that's sort of my technical vocabulary. Apollo 11. So I've got 2 types to include here. So important events in history. That is vocabulary that makes me feel something. Important events in history. Let's try and find one more. Mankind's greatest achievement. That's quite powerful. Mankind's. Okay, so your task now is to pause the clip and have a go at filling out the vocabulary section on your own. Again, feel free to rewind to me when I'm reading it through, as that may help you. And then you can press play when you're ready, and we will do the grammar section. Okay, so the grammar section. Now, grammar is really, really important for this piece of writing because it is going to help you out. And it is not only necessarily about noticing the grammar that is included, but maybe thinking about the things that you would like to use. So rather than going through and finding an example, I think it would be more useful if we spent some time just going over the grammar that we have already used this year and an example of each, so that you can go and find it and so that you can start to make choices and come up with your own examples. So we will start with simple sentences. Simple sentences are a subject, a verb and an object. Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. That is my simple sentence. Someone doing something on something. We have then also looked at compound sentences, which is where, with a coordinating conjunction, two of my ideas, two of my clauses are joined together. Two clauses joined. So an example of this might be not Lance Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was the first man on the moon and he was with Buzz Aldrin. So that "and" has given me an extra clause and more information. So we've got simple sentences, we've got compound sentences. We looked at expanded noun phrases. An expanded noun phrase is an adjective, then a noun, and then a prepositional phrase. And these are really important to give that clarity to your reader. Adjective, noun, prepositional phrase. So I might have, I want to describe the moon. I might call it the glowing moon in space. I might want to describe the astronaut, the brave astronaut from America. Those are expanded noun phrases. We also have looked at relative clauses. And a relative clause goes after a noun, then you have your relative pronoun, and then your relative clause. So, you might be talking about the lunar module. You'd then have a relative pronoun, which, that, when, who. These are all relative pronouns. So, lunar module, which, and then more information about it, which was designed in America. So the lunar module, which was designed in America, and then you can continue your sentence. Something else that's important that we touched on is something called parenthesis. And parenthesis is when you use brackets, commas or dashes to include your extra information. Now sometimes relative clauses can be in parenthesis. So our main types are information in brackets, for when the information is less important than what you're talking about, it's just an extra fact. Commas, when it's as important to include. And dashes, if you want to include some information which is very important and needs to be highlighted within the sentence. You might want to go back to the Waggle and find an example of those. There's also some more general things we need to think about. We need to think about what tense is this written in. We need to think about what person is it written in. First, second, third. And then most importantly, because this is an argument, we need to look at something called cohesion. And cohesion, I've briefly touched on in my class, is the flow of your writing. What words, normally found at the beginning of the sentence, help with the flow to start your sentence and introduce you to the next point. Now sometimes this cohesion can be achieved with a fronted adverbial like we've looked at, of time, manner or place. In this case, if we turn back, these are for cohesion are sentence starters. Our sentence starters are really, really important in this piece of writing because they will give us our cohesion, our flow. In addition to this, however, furthermore, these are what we call cohesive sentence starters. Here we have, for over 50 years now, that is an adverbial of time, but also a cohesive sentence starter, because it's helping my writing to flow. So those are some of the things that you might like to think about. And again, you can listen to each of those explanations in turn, go back to your Waggle, and then try and find them in the Waggle, and then use your examples to populate the grammar section here. Then once you've done that, grab a photo and send a picture to your teachers. We look forward to seeing what you've come up with.